Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 8 of the Dementia Information Series. Thank you so much for joining us for 8 weeks of great information. Just a reminder that we do hold this session twice a year, usually once in Oakville and once in Burlington, but obviously virtually this time. And our next session should be sometime in usually around April. The next one will start. So I encourage you to look for that if you wish to recommend it to friends or family for the next time around. Again, thank you for joining us. And at the end of tonight, we will have a quick poll for you, the surveys. Thank you so much for filling those out as we've gone along. And about a month from now, you will also get another survey. And these surveys help us provide, help us understand how the information has helped you and how we might be able to make it better. So we appreciate you filling that out this evening and in 4 weeks. And now I'm pleased to introduce my coworker and caregiver educator, Vinitha Nair, and she's going to be talking to you tonight about looking after yourself. So congrats to all of you who've come tonight, because this evening is just about you. So I will turn it over to Vinitha. Thank you, Vinitha.
Hello, everybody. So like Sandy said, we've been talking all these weeks about how you've been taking care of a caregiver and what are some of those resources and information that you can access, the support and the information that you can access to take care of a family member. Today, the focus is on you and how you can take care of yourself. I'm just going to pull up the PowerPoint here. Can you see the screen, Sandy? Tell her.
Just switch the display at the top. Under display settings at the top. You're not sharing it. Yep. Go back. Yep.
Okay.
Go back to share. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Slideshow.
Yep, got it.
And now, there you go. Yeah.
How about that?
You're good to go.
All right. All right. Thank you. So our topic for today is looking after yourself. The primary reason we're talking about this is because we usually are so consumed by the needs of the person that we're taking care of that we don't prioritize our needs. So it's hard to make time for ourselves, and we just don't find the time to do things that we need to do. Right? So today we'll cover importance of self-care. We'll discuss a few tips and strategies, and I won't exactly talk about the resources, but I've attached a few slides there with some resources that you can access for yourself as well as for your family member. Okay. We'll start off with Rosalind Carter's quote, the former First Lady of the United States. She lost her dad when she was very young, about 13 years old, and she took on a lot of responsibilities. She's a very strong advocate for mental health and a champion for caregivers. She's also founded the Rosalind Carter Institute of Caregiving in Atlanta, Georgia. So her quote, this is her famous quote. She says, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who are currently caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. So obviously, we are in that third group. We're not alone. We are a part of this huge community, caregiving community. Just to give you an idea of how many people in Canada are actually caregivers, I pulled up some statistics from the Stats Canada website. You'd be amazed to know that 1/4 of the seniors in Canada, that is 1/4 of 1.5 million seniors. That's a large number. 65 years and older, we have 375,000 caregivers. 1 in 4 adults cares for a friend or a family member. Typical profile of the caregiver is that they're 54% are women and 46% are men. The percentage goes higher when it's parents taking care of children. So I didn't want to quote those numbers. This one's more relevant to us. Now, what happens when we become a caregiver? We go through this unexpected transition. Most of us are unprepared, right? We don't expect it. We have plans for retirement. We have plans to take care of our own families, travel with them, spend time in activities that we enjoy. So no one expects this. No one, I'm not aware of any caregiver who's told me that, oh, we had planned for this to be one of the things we do when we got older, right? Most of us didn't have a choice. We find ourselves in this role. So what do? We step into those shoes and we do what we have to. But nevertheless, we play a very important role. It's a selfless job. Sometimes it feels like it is thankless, but we do a lot to keep our family members safe. We keep them at home longer than they can stay without our care. We keep them out of the hospital and we give them a better quality of life. So it's natural that we just take our time to adjust to this transition. While we are adjusting, it's only natural that we experience a roller coaster of emotions. Like I said, none of us expected it. We didn't, ask for this to be put into this role, but we're now suddenly facing a ton of responsibilities to take care of our parent or our spouse or partner. I'm going to take a moment here and ask you to take an inventory of your feelings and let me know, how do you feel? What are some of those feelings and emotions that you experience as a caregiver? If you don't mind using the Q&A and just typing in the words. So if you click on the Q&A box at the top of your screen, it will open up. Yeah. And you can answer anonymously or you can use your name. So I see tired, mostly on the left, overwhelmed, yellow, sad, overwhelmed, tired, depressed, guilty, resigned. Yeah. 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 Thank you. So, do we have more that I didn't read? Yeah. Sad. Exhausted. We feel robbed, frustrated, sometimes broken. Yeah. Thank you. So typically, these are very common experiences that caregivers have shared. Yeah. So these are, some of the common feelings that caregivers experience. We saw some of these come up. Denial. We don't want to accept the diagnosis. This can't be happening to me. I want to deal with this now. There's sometimes anger and resentment. How can this happen? I wasn't expecting it. Sometimes resentment towards family members that are not participating, that won't provide care, that don't assist with providing care. Guilt is a big one. It comes up very often in our support groups and in our conversations with caregivers that no matter what they do, even if they provide the best of care, they are always questioning if they've done enough. And you'll hear that we have a few guest speakers today who will talk about their experiences, and you'll hear that come up again with all of them. Sadness, grief, loss, that's a big one when you're a caregiver, particularly if a person with dementia. We refer to the grief that a caregiver of a person with dementia experiences as complicated grief, because it's so different from the final closure that we have in our lives. Typically, there's a, it's an end of life is one final moment, and we're able to move forward from that point because everybody has an expectation of how to process that grief and what kind of support the individual or the family needs. But with dementia, it's like you're neither here nor there. Your family member is with you, you're living with cognitive impairment, but the losses are so significant that it feels like you've lost the person while they're still here with you. And that's part of all these feelings that we talked about just now, the denial, the anger, the guilt. Is I shouldn't have these thoughts, because sometimes you wish for the end. It's so difficult to deal with those feelings, right? Hope and acceptance. We hope for things to get better, and when that doesn't, it evolves into, okay, I'm running against a wall here. I can't do anything. There are caregivers who've told me that, I feel like my family member is getting better. And that's, again, a false hope. So denial and false hope, quite common. Acceptance, there are some who have accepted the diagnosis, and it's easier sometimes for the caregiver to accept and process these feelings when their family member is more amenable to care. When there are responsive behaviors, it just complicates the situation a little more. So common feelings that caregivers experience. These are some of the feelings that usually come up. Yeah, tired and exhausted, yes, because there is no break. This is a 24/7 job. There is no break, right? And later on, when we talk about the importance of self-care, you'll hear me say, that you need to ask for help and get support. So, like I mentioned earlier, all of these feelings are normal. They're very common. Some of them can be strong and make you uncomfortable. You could feel good and bad at the same time. So you're just because you're accepting and recognizing that this is the new role that you've transitioned into, it doesn't mean that you have to experience negative feelings all the time. I've had caregivers say that their experience has been very positive and rewarding. So caregiving is very different for everybody. It can be positive for some family members who approach it from the perspective of giving back. They have a sense of doing something meaningful for their family members. It gives them a sense of purpose. It makes them feel like I've reconnected, because their relationships are very complicated in some families. I've had people say that the past relationships were so unpleasant that now things have changed, or it could be quite the opposite. So it's different for everybody. There is no right or wrong in the kind of feelings that you experience. It's very normal to feel any of these feelings. Okay. And regardless of whether it's positive or negative, caregiving is a very tough job. It's hard work. It's physical, emotional, and mental work. So it's very important for us to acknowledge that we're feeling these feelings, accept them, and manage the feelings. How do we do that? The magic word is self-care. You might have heard this very cliche, sounds cliche, right? Self-care is not selfish. You can't pour from an empty cup. And the typical analogy that I use is fix your own oxygen mask before you help others, because there's no point if you can't function yourself, then how are you going to help support another person? right? And I think Sandy has an analogy with a frog. Do you want to share that, Sandy?
Sure. My frog analogy is that if you take a frog is cold-blooded, and if you take a frog and you put the frog in a pot of cold water, the frog is fine. He's happy, right? And then if you turn the burner on under the pot, the water starts to get warmer and warmer, and the frog just gradually adjusts to the temperature of the water and doesn't notice that it's slowly heating up, and it doesn't notice the pressure building and the heat building till all of a sudden the water's bubbling and boiling, and sadly the frog is probably dead by that point. But the analogy is caregivers are similar in that when you start caregiving, you're fine. You're in the cold water, everything is fine. But what happens is you don't notice when the heat and the pressure start building because you move along with your relative. Every change that happens to them, you adapt and adjust to it. And so what happens is you really don't have much of an idea how much stress you're under. And so you need to listen to other people. If other people start saying, you know, mom, I think you need help, right? You need help in the home. So we need to listen to other people too. When they start to see the water boiling around us, and we say, oh, we're fine, we don't need help. You know, your dad's just like that. So think of the boiling frog and be careful. Be careful as the pressure and the heat build.
Yep.
Thank you, Vinitha.
Thank you. So the point is that we tend to neglect our own needs. What we don't realize is that before the diagnosis, before our family member was diagnosed, we had our lives to live. We had certain needs to take care of ourselves and continue with our lives. Those needs still exist. Our lives have to continue. We've added to our role, right? We've got more responsibilities, and our role has evolved from being the daughter or the son or a husband or wife, right? But we have to accommodate that. We have to adapt. Life does not come with a roadmap, right? We have to change and adapt to those situations. So we put ourselves at risk by not taking care of our emotional and physical and mental health. So the key is to find that balance. I've got the Caregiver Bill of Rights. I poached it from a book by Joe Horn. So take a moment to read those. I won't go over them, but it's something that I would encourage you to print and post it on the refrigerator or a door so you see it every day. Yeah, and it'll encourage you to take care of yourself. So, and not feel bad about it. That's the idea. So go over the Caregiver Bill of Rights. There's 9 of them, right? It just tells you that it's okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to make mistakes. We're not perfect. We're human. Okay. So speaking of self-care, how do we practice self-care? We start off by building resilience. I just said earlier, life does not come with a roadmap and a manual. What do you do when you're faced with a particular situation? We have challenges, lots of changes as we go along this journey. And Sandy was just talking about the frog analogy, and she said we move with our family member in stages. And that's why when we're caregivers, we don't realize our needs are evolving with their change in with the progression of the disease. So in the initial stages, in the early stages, our family member, our loved one, is able to manage on their own. They don't need much support. They're not very dependent, and we're okay with it. But as they progress further into the disease, their needs get more and more complicated. There is more dependence. You are required to, spend more time and take care of a lot of their responsibilities, the financial work, fixing appointments, driving them to appointments, making sure that they're eating their meals, they're taking a shower, are they safe. So it just continues to evolve from there. But we just go with the flow, and we just don't realize that it's built up. It wasn't where we started out 6 months ago or 2 years ago. So building resilience means adapting to those changes, adapting to those challenges. And you'll hear from the caregivers that I've invited to speak to you a little later. They will talk to you about how their own lives had changed, and they didn't realize until somebody from their family noticed how much of a stress they were under and said, well, you can't do this anymore. Things have got to change. You've got to make some decisions regarding mom's care, or find some support. So building resilience is talking about how you bounce back. Yes, I'm finding myself in a new situation now. What can I do? How can I adapt? Let's manage this now. What are the different steps I can take? Create your circles of support. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about a contingency plan. I've enclosed the document. So if you click on the highlighted words there, it will actually take you into the document. It's from Indiana University's social work department. It's a series of concentric circles with me, the word me, at the center of the circle. And with each circle that that goes around, you're expanding your circle of support. So the very first circle next to the word me is your circle of intimacy. These are people who are dear to you, who share everything, who you share everything with. So in your inner circle, mostly family members, sometimes close friends. Your circle of friendship, people that you would go to, you would call for support. That can also include family members. Participation is the circle of participation is people that you would work with, or clubs, sports clubs, teams, organizations, different groups that you belong to. And they evolve into friendships. So circle 3 can become a circle 2 or circle 1. And the final one is a circle of exchange, people that you would go to for professionals, paid professionals, like the PSWs, the doctors, the recharge, whoever you hire, private care. So those are paid professionals. This circle of support is absolutely essential when you need to take a break. We started out by saying that at some point when you are a caregiver, you are required to be offering care 24/7, right? And when it gets to that point, the stress level increases. Not all of us can sustain that. That's when you need to look for support. That's when you need to make some decisions regarding care. But when you're building up to that level of stress, create your circles of support, have conversations with them, do some advanced planning regarding who can help me take a break once a week, who can shop for groceries, who can I call if I'm going to the ER. So that's the idea of building a circle of support. Just take some time when you get a chance and plan that, complete that chart for yourself, and talk to the people. Let them know that I've created this circle of support. I'd like you to do these things if and when I need of that support. Nurture your health. Nurturing your health is talking about physical, mental, emotional health, right? Your well-being, eating well, sleeping well, exercise. Most of us neglect our own health when we're taking care of our loved ones. There's actual research to show that spouses are at a very high risk for dementia themselves because of the level of stress that they experience, and the continuous caregiving that they, continuous support that they offer to their partners. So, any family member for that matter, you need to find a balance, a proper balance, a healthy balance between your role as a caregiver and your own mental and physical health. So for the younger generation, we call them the sandwich generation. they're caught between taking care of their own families and their older parents. So again, finding the time to balance that out. That's what I'm referring to in nurturing your health. And something that none of us think about, most of us don't think about it, the stress and the feelings and the emotions that we experience translate into physical symptoms. So inflammation, hypertension, problems with circulation, because we just don't find the time to take care of ourselves. We build up the stress. Stress releases hormones that are not exactly doing anything good for our bodies. So trying to maintain that balance, finding the time to do that, whether it's taking a walk or going for a swim, whatever that activity may be. It's different for everybody, but finding the time to do that for yourselves. Using humor to de-stress. And I have a story about one of the caregivers who we'll be talking to in the video in a bit. But for now, I'm going to talk to you about how humor is helpful to de-stress. There's actually a research at the Stanford Psychophysiology Lab. They asked participants to look at a series of graphic images, and they were of people in distress, animals in distress, accidents, corpses, and the participants were instructed to look at the image, but before they expressed the emotion that they experienced, they were requested to crack a joke. Could have been positive or negative, and then to express the emotion. And the outcome of that research was that those who had joked about the images experienced a lower intensity of negative emotions. Those who made positive comments or positive jokes about the image were not feeling so stressed. So using humor is a good example. I've also had caregivers tell me, I mean, how many times can you get angry with your loved one when they say the same thing? So eventually you've got to see the later side of it and make it, and turn it around, see the humor in the situation. So I've got a little clip here to show you. Tala, if you don't mind playing that video for us, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. So the point of that video, of showing you that video, was because I was trying to explain that laughter is good for you, humor is good for you. It releases a happy hormone, and that kind of boosts your immune system. So I heard a TED talk, and the lady who was, I forget her name now, this was a while ago, she said, 1 minute of anger weakens our immune system by 5 hours, but 1 minute of laughter can strengthen it for 24 hours. So, your choice. We'll go for the funny, the happy hormone, all right? So laughter is, and we always tell caregivers, put a smile on your face when you're, talking to your family member, because they mirror it, they experience the same emotion, they respond more positively to you. Okay. Sorry, I'm having trouble moving to my next slide. I apologize. I'm trying to get back here. All right. Sorry about that. So, so what are some self-care strategies that you can use? Know your limits. Recognize what you can do and what's beyond your capacity. It's okay to say that I can't get to everything on my to-do list, right? So recognizing what you can and cannot do is important. Connecting with people. Most of us, when we become caregivers, notice that we are moving away and isolating from friends and family. Um, it becomes a smaller and smaller world. Our social connections are limited because sometimes because we don't have the time or the energy to socialize. Sometimes any chance you get to talk to a friend, it's all you want to talk about, and that's not what they want to listen, right? So consciously acknowledging that this is my situation. I will connect with friends. Maybe I'll talk for 5 minutes about my situation, but then after that, we'll move on to a different topic. This is for you to de-stress. This is part of self-care. And some of this is consciously learned. You have to make an effort to do it. It doesn't come easily, right? So making an effort to connect with people for social support, joining a group, or joining a club. Start a journal. Writing down your thoughts is very therapeutic. It actually gives you an opportunity to get it out of your system. I've had people write one positive thought for every day. I've had people say that it helps me to say what I'm thankful for when I begin the day and when I end the day. Mindfulness is, of course, a huge movement now, and there are so many apps that you can find for mindfulness and meditation. Be hopeful and positive. Again, positive affirmations. How you think determines how you feel and how you act, and then it's your body response according to that. And I'll be honest with you. When I went to India this time to visit with my mom, I realized that she is showing some signs and symptoms of starting to be forgetful, and I'm not allowed to use the word dementia when I talk to mom. So we just said, Mom, you're just getting a little forgetful when you turn on the stove. And yeah, you told me that yesterday. So I had to be a little mindful of not, pointing that out to her. Yes, I find myself telling caregivers to do a lot of things, but when it came to my own situation, I forgot some of these, strategies myself, and I would get so stressed with her. We ended up with arguments, and I decided I had to back off. I had to do something to take my mind off of being stressed. I actually started to do yoga, and I've started some meditation. And I have to tell you, I'm not going to give it up. It actually helps with the stress level. It brings you to a calmer state. So mindfulness it's a new experience for me, starting this meditation, and I hope I will continue with it. So I strongly encourage, I recommend that, highly recommend that to caregivers. Being hopeful and positive, just having a positive attitude instead of minimizing what you do, being critical of what you do. I should be doing these things and I'm not. Acknowledge and give yourselves credit for what you're doing. Acknowledge the work you're doing. Like I said, it's tough work. Being a caregiver is not easy. It's demanding, so it takes a toll on us. So acknowledge when you do any little gesture. It brings joy to your loved ones. It brings joy to you. Acknowledge that. Live in the moment and experience that. Try not to go back into the past and think of, go back into memories that bring you to a lower energy level, that bring your emotions down. Overall, you want a holistic approach to self-care. Concentrate on physical, spiritual, and mental health. It's different for everybody. What brings you joy is very individual, is based on your preference. So I've just given a few ideas there. Do whatever brings joy to you. Find something fun that takes your mind off. So as part of what Sandy and Tala and I do at Acclaim Health, we actually offer wellness programs every now and then, and we've done fun activities. And for us, the ultimate feedback from those programs is to have caregivers tell us that, well, I didn't think of my family member there for a while. I was having a lot of fun, right? So it's a positive experience. So finding something that will bring you joy. I'm going to play a couple of videos to you. These are caregivers that we have been supporting for a few years. And I wanted you to hear, it's better, I think, when you hear from a caregiver who's been in your shoes, what they have done and what has worked for them, or, you know, what struggles and challenges they have overcome. So I've invited two caregivers to talk to you. We recorded their videos. I'm going to play those two videos. And then we'll come back, and if you have any questions on the content that was presented, we'll address those questions before we go on break. Okay, so the first video is from our caregiver, Dennis, who is caring for his wife, Barbara. She was diagnosed with early onset dementia in 2014. She was only 65 at the time. Barbara and Dennis have been married for a little over 47 years, and he says there have been difficult days, but I'll let him talk to you directly in the video. He says that dreaded question of who are you, was hard in the beginning, but then he later figured out that it was easier to turn it into a humorous situation, and he makes Barbara laugh every time he responds to that question. She says, "Who are you?" And he says, "I'm your first husband." So that's Dennis for you. He is retired, but he's an active Shriner, so he volunteers with the Oak Grove Shrine Club. The second caregiver that you will see on the video is Ruthann. She is caring for her partner, Doug, at home. And she juggles her work, her family, as well as caregiving, and she has a dog and a cat. So she is a strong proponent of having a case of wine at home when you're a caregiver. I think she's toned it down to a little bit of wine when she talks to you on the video. So we'll listen to both these caregivers, and then we'll come back and take questions. Tala, if you don't mind playing those videos for me, thanks.
Many times, especially towards the end, there were times when I would wish my wife was in a long-term care already. Just trying to do simple chores and trying to include her, say, changing the sheets on the bed, and say, hold this end of the sheet, and I'll hold the other end, and then we'll pull it over. Couldn't do it. And you couldn't, the thing is, at this point of frustration, you want to blurt out awful things. Say, why can't you do this? But then you realize that the person doesn't understand and cannot do it. And the thing is, I want people to realize you're not alone. Everyone goes through this, including guilt. And the guilt is that maybe I should have tried harder, or I should have done more. It's not. The disease is like a sponge. It sucks up as much of your energy without giving back. And they don't realize that they are depleting your energy level. And if you're not careful, you can get sick as well.
So how did you manage to overcome those feelings of guilt, and what did you do when you had those kinds of emotions?
I tried to leave the room and gather my sense of humor. Tried something else to divert or deflect the situation, because she realized that I was getting frustrated, and she was getting frustrated because she didn't understand why I was getting frustrated. And so we'll try something else. Let's go down. upstairs and watch TV, go for a ride, just to change the situation. Now, not everyone can do that, but that was my way of dealing with the situation until I actually had help come in.
Okay. Did you ever feel at any point that you just didn't have enough time to do what you had to do, some chores at home, as well as some things that you wanted to do for fun?
Many times. It's again, there's so much you have to do to ensure that that person is safe and happy and healthy. And the you know, even making something to eat, they may not like. All of a sudden, their favorite food, they don't like it anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're like dealing with a child, okay? But this person is an adult, and it's hard for you to rationalize that in your mind sometimes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's many times when I felt like I was winning the situation. And as I said, eventually I broke down in front of my kids, and my kids gave me what for, because I didn't ask for help. I said, well, I felt I could handle it myself, and I can't, and you can't. Mm-hmm. There's no guilt involved in it. It's just, you're only a human being.
Yeah. So kind of hard to balance the caregiving and your own care.
Well, you know, I have to say this: if it wasn't for Acclaim and the Alzheimer's Society and their courses, mm-hmm. I'd be at loose ends, because it helped me greatly, mm-hmm. and to deal with the guilt and to the care, mm-hmm. and what to look forward to, what not to look forward to, as far as the disease progresses. It's not a surprise anymore. I know what's coming, yeah. And that's very important to me.
Mm-hmm. Education, and being informed. Yeah, great to know. So, if you were to, talk to caregivers, again, thank you for doing what you're doing. We are actually sharing this information with other caregivers. If there was the best kept secret that you would like to share with other caregivers, what would you say from you to another caregiver? What would your advice be?
I guess it's my corollary, which I tell everybody: after me, you look first. Mm-hmm. Because when you're on an airplane and the stewardess is saying, okay, the mask is going to fall out of the ceiling, make sure you put it on first before you put it on your kids. There's a reason for that. Yeah. Because if you're suddenly incapacitated, you can't help your loved ones. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with the disease. If you don't look after yourself and make sure that you get, sleep or food, rest, whatever, mm-hmm. eventually you will not be able to look after your loved one, and they'll drag you down with you.
Yeah. Any other tips?
Try to see the happiness. Try to see the fun side of it. Don't remember all the bad things. Remember some of the funny things.
I think the first thing you have to accept is that there are going to be difficult days. You hope that, there's not a string of them in a row. And then you have to just try to manage your way through that. And that's easy to say and not easy to do. If it gets rough, maybe just walk out of the room, go into another room, take a deep breath, vent a little if you feel, to yourself. I use a crazy thing. Instead of saying what I'm thinking, I'll say lemon cream pie, because it's probably a lot nicer than what I'm really thinking. But I'll just I might sometimes say it a little loud just to myself somewhere, just to, but to try to get myself calmed down. I think, if you do react and you get a little short with whoever you're caring for, remember that for most of us, with the short-term memory gone, they're not going to remember anything you said. You will remember it for a bit, and then hopefully discharge it, but they won't remember it. So it will just not fall on deaf ears, but it won't stay with them. Know that, as I said at the beginning, that hopefully those difficult days don't string together into difficult weeks, although that's again easy to say. But if you can try to get yourself a good night's sleep, if you can. I know that for some people, the nights are really rough. There's a lot of up and down and distractions and stuff, but it's so important, because if you have a difficult day, that good night's sleep is going to set you up for the next day, which, generally is better. If you get a chance to have a quick call with a family member or a friend, or just some distraction, that really helps. If you can if you get a free minute, lose yourself in a book or a TV show, even if it's not for a long period of time, but just something to take your mind off what's going on.
Thank you for that. Next question is, what resources or support you accessed and that were really helpful for you?
I learned at the beginning that, to start out with, I didn't really think I needed help, but I learned very quickly on that everybody needs help with this. I was instructed to reach out to the LIN, which is the local integrated health network. I was given a support worker there, and that was really the catalyst that directed me in a lot of different ways to the resources that were out there for me, not the least of which was Acclaim Health. And I will mention that because it's been instrumental in getting me through this, particularly in COVID. I mean, COVID has exacerbated this for everybody. But I think it really has exacerbated it for family members who are caregivers at home. We know the horrible situations with all the long-term care, facilities and everything. But if we've been a caregiver at home through this, we've been doing it ourselves. Whereas before we might have had, different kinds of support. But my family member was in the day program 3 days a week, as an example, at Acclaim, which I was very blessed that he was there. But, that stopped. So you're kind of one-on-one doing what 10 people did before. I find that that has been an incredible resource. I've had calls from people there, just as a shoulder for me, just calling me to find out how I am. So I think that spousal support groups, anything like that. Don't feel that that there's something that won't help, because I can tell you they do help. I think to recognize that you're not alone in this, and that there are many other people going through what you're going through in different ways, because there's so many different kinds of dementia. But I think you do need to reach out, or figure out somehow to get that support.
Thank you. One last question. From one caregiver to another, if there is a golden rule or the best advice that you would share with another caregiver, what would that be?
Can I just say a couple of things before that? Because there's a few things that I've learned before I just say the golden rule. But I think you need to know how to practice the art of distraction. I think that distraction can be a wonderful thing when you're going through whatever we're all going through. And there's probably times you're going to have to tell a small fib. Small fibs, I've learned, are okay. Like for the 30th time, where are the cookies, or some other obsession. It's okay to fib a little. Just know that. The other thing is it's easy. You'll hear it a lot about, you need to look after yourself. Well, that's easy to hear and easy to say, but it isn't always necessarily easy to practice. But this is very, very critical. Baking, cooking, we've all been stuck at home. Just try to do some different things like that. Fresh air, just walk outdoors, take a few deep breaths. There's if you have an iPhone or an iPad or use that at all, there's an app called Calm. Download that, it's fabulous. Vinitha will probably massacre me, but a little wine doesn't hurt either sometimes, particularly at sundown. And we all probably see sundown in that term in different ways these days. The golden rule, dementia is a disease. We weren't ready for it. We're not all trained to manage it well. Do the best you can. And if it gets you down and you lose your patience, that's more than okay. remember that you are really, really special to the family member that you are caring for. And no matter what happens along the way, you're the most important person to that person. And again, I can't emphasize enough, just try to look after yourself as well, because that's the most critical part of all of this that you're doing.
Thank you, Tala. So we can take questions now on the content that was presented, on the videos that we shared. I hope you heard the message loud and clear. It is important to take care of yourself, and I love how they both said, yeah, things will get difficult. You have to ask for help. I think most often when people come up to us and say, how are you doing? Our automatic response is, oh, we're fine. No, we're not. We need help. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to talk about our family members' illness. There's no shame in it. And I often tell caregivers, print off an entire list of things that you have to do, your to-do list. Print it off, stick it on the refrigerator. And when someone says, what can I do to help you? Give them the sheet of paper and say, take your pick. That way, they have a choice. And you're not telling them what to do, because some people receive it better that way. Also, I've talked to caregivers who said, but my grandson can come and he can cut only a bit of the grass. He won't do it all. So what? You cut it in 3 different days of the week. You want the grass cut. Does it matter if it's cut on one day or on 3 different days of the week? So the idea is ask for help, get that help. You want to give the best of yourself when you're taking care of somebody. But to do that, you have to feel the best of yourself. And to do that, you have to take care of yourself. So that's the concept behind self-care is nourish yourselves, whether it's on a day-to-day basis. If you can spend 10 minutes every day just to sit in a quiet space. Like Rigan said, watch a TV show, listen to music, read a book, knit, sew, whatever makes you happy. And then also build in some long-term plans, like take a break. I said that this is a 24/7 job. If we were working, we take a vacation. So when you're a caregiver, take a break, take a vacation from it. It could be just staying at home and having someone else in the family do what you're doing, right? So having those conversations to access support from family members and friends is really important. I'm happy to take any questions if you have any comments or questions on the content. Oh, is the dementia medication preventing the deteriorating? I'm not exactly sure if the dementia medication is effective after a certain stage of cognitive impairment. I know that most physicians will say that it's more effective in the earlier stages. And it's up to the family members and to decide, and the doctor to continue the medication or not after a certain stage. Sandy, any thoughts?
No, this was covered in week 1. Not that any of us remember what Dr. Lamb said at this point, but if you wish further information, please go back and look at the recording from week 1. Every person with dementia reacts differently to medications, and it takes trial and error regarding medications. Yep. So.
Patients placed on prophylactic meds for UTIs. Oh gosh, I don't know. That's a very medical question. Sorry, I can't answer that. I'm not aware. One more question. I have a question about dementia and weight loss. If your loved one no longer wants to eat or drink meal supplements, has there been any evidence to show that medical cannabis helps. Again, a question for your doctor. I do have caregivers that I'm supporting that have are using the CBD oil. Yeah, I have caregivers who are using it, and I've had them say it's effective for their loved ones. I've also heard the flip side that it's not doing anything. So again, it depends on your loved one and how they respond to it. Question for your doctor. All right, and I think that's the end of our Q&A. I want to thank you all for joining us for all these weeks and getting the information. It is one of your self-care strategies that you've actually implemented. So thank you for that. Please know that you're not alone. Sandy, Tella, and I are just a phone call or an email away. You have our contact information, so anytime you need to ask a question or you need some information, you need to access a resource, you need to know how to navigate the system, please feel free to call us or email us or fill out that online request for support, and we'll get back to you within 24 hours. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. And thank you, everybody. Vinitha, the self-care resources you had, those have been emailed out to everybody?
Yes, it's included in the PowerPoint. Just want to mention a couple of things there. If you sign up for the email newsletter on Acclaim's website, you will automatically receive updates anytime we host an education event or a wellness event, or if we have new support groups that are starting up in January, you will get all of that information. I know Sandy has a Powerful Tools program that's going to start in January sometime. My colleague Anna has a wellness series that's starting in January. So we've got a few things set up. I will be hosting a mid to late stage discussion series in February. Don't have the dates yet, but all of these wonderful events are for you, for the caregivers to access. So check on our website. If you don't want to sign up for the email newsletter, just regularly just check on our website and you'll know if we're offering anything, any new events, when they're starting and what time, and they're almost always registered. So I would get on that list if you wanted a spot, to reserve a spot.
Great. And there is one comment. Thank you for this wonderful series. Your team is the best. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you for that. And we hope to see many of you moving forward in our groups and further education sessions. And please don't forget to fill out the poll before you leave this evening. Tal is going to launch the poll any minute, and please fill that out. And we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.